The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the HEASC Student Affairs Stories of Sustainability, Resources to Engage Students and Remove Silos webinar. I'm Jesse Legg from AASHE, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, and I'm serving as your host for today. The length of this webinar will be 90 minutes with approximately 40 minutes of presentation, followed by time for questions and comments from participants. As a participant, you will be on mute during the webinar. You will be able to see the slides, which will advance automatically. And you should feel welcome to type your questions or general comments via the control panel so those items can be addressed during the discussion portion of the webinar. You can ask questions at any time during the presentation. The webinar will be recorded and you will be sent a link to the webinar by the end of next week, around April 25th. And if you are tweeting this webinar, please use the hashtag HEASCStories. Now I'd like to introduce our webinar facilitators, who will then introduce you to our speakers. Deborah Rowe is a national and international leader in the field and has been working on sustainability in higher education for decades. She is well known throughout the movement, and we're thrilled to have her join us today. Deb will be assisted today by Kay Holman, who currently serves as a career counselor in the College of Business at Colorado State University, and she is a HEASC Sustainability Fellow for 2013 and 14, whose work is focused on advancing sustainability education within higher education student affairs. I'd like to turn it over to Deb Rowe to introduce the speakers.
Hi, welcome everybody. In my many decades of work of sustainability, which means just that I'm old, right? I've always felt very at home in the student affairs world. Somebody's typing, whoever's typing needs to put themselves on mute. And so much good work has already come out of student affairs that has affected all the other areas of higher ed and even K-12 and informal education. So I want to start out with the congratulations to all of you attendees and those who are listening to the recording for the great work you've already done to help create a more sustainable future for all. And of course, there's much left to be done. So today's webinar is filled with great information that you can use on your campuses and also to help the national and international efforts. It's brought to you by HEASC. HEASC is the Higher Education Association's Sustainability Consortium. This is a network of associations who are committed to making sustainability on the center of the plate, or the lens, you might say, for both the system of higher education and the wider society that it's a part of. You can see the members of the Higher Education Association Sustainability Consortium. They came together not only to share resources, but also to create joint initiatives like the one we have today, and also to give each of you power on your campus to turn to the other groups or the other functions on your campus and say, well, your professional association is involved with this. So you can see it's made up of a number of student affairs associations. Excuse me. It's also made up of presidential associations like AACC for the community colleges, ASCU for the state colleges and universities, NICU for the independent colleges and universities, and the Council of Christian Colleges and Universities. It's also made up of the professional associations for business officers, procurement officers, the recreation leaders on campuses, and also the housing officers, and the facilities directors, the health and safety officers, and more. So it's a great way for you to point to how HEASC says, let's work across functions and silos, and so helping to make that happen on your campus as well. So that's HEASC. And let's see if I can get to the next slide. Come on. There we go. So the facilitators are myself, but I have to give credit to Kay. She really has been the professional glue that has held us all together and created this event for you today. So thank you to her. And the good news and bad news, we have all these people who want to join who can't join because we've reached our max. Our speakers today include Tim Broderick, Sustainability Coordinator of Housing and Dining at Colorado State University, but also Chair of the NASPA Sustainability Knowledge Community. And I want to point out that we need more people working on the national level, as Tim has committed to do, to create the systemic change. So thank you, Tim. We also have Janice. Janice is the Director of Recreation at Santa Clara University, and she is a member, once again, of the Nurses Sustainability Committee, a national role that helps us move this forward in ways that we can't when we're just on campuses. And that just jumped a slide. We also have as a speaker Maureen. Maureen is the Director of Campus Recreation at DePaul University. She's also the former president of NERSA, so it's great that she can be with us. And Jim Tweedy, the Senior Associate Director of Residence Life and Housing at the University of Delaware, but also the Chair of ACPA's Sustainability Advisory Committee and has been involved nationally for a number of years, as all these speakers have. So I'm very pleased to have them join us today, and thank you for all your efforts. This is ACPA's College Student Educators International's graphic on defining sustainability. It really looks at that triple bottom line of that if we make smarter decisions, that we can simultaneously create healthier ecosystems, social systems, and economies all at the same time, and really making sure that we don't forget that emphasis on what some call social justice, what others might call preparing people to effectively participate in democracy, but it's really about human welfare, community health, and also economic growth, but it's not mindless growth, it's sustainable growth. And sometimes it's not even about growth, it's just about creating vibrant communities. So those three things together make up a sustainable society. And there we go. The slides change slowly. So this is NERSA's graphic on sustainability, and really similar, but goes into more detail. It has on it the Brundtland Commission definition that, of course, was formulated with people from over 100 countries, that sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, and that we have these bullets underneath each of the three areas. I also particularly like how it shows the intersections. So you see the socio-environmental, the socio-economic, the economic environmental, to more fully flesh out what sustainability is, what it can be, and how we can end up with healthy people, communities, and ecosystems all at the same time. Worth looking at, worth thinking about. Now, our learning outcomes for today's webinar are to identify the benefits of sustainability efforts on campus, to categorize the silos that are hindering sustainability on campus, and to provide stories of sustainability initiatives on campuses. I'm very interested, as I'm sure you are, in the peer-to-peer interaction that's going to happen in the open question and answer and discussion afterwards, and to connect all of us to the association resources that'll help enhance our own sustainability efforts, which I hope are not only on campus, but also in your region, and with an eye to impacting the national and the international as well. In terms of the benefits of sustainability efforts, we already know that it helps with student engagement and learning. And there's a wonderful new website up called Sustainability Improves Student Learning out of Carleton that was based on a U.S. Department of Ed program that really looks at the research literature as well as the beginner's toolkit for faculty. What are the key components of sustainability assignments so that we can enhance even more so student engagement using this sustainability lens or framework. Of course, not only do we get students engaged more in learning, but we also help to organize to create a better future for all of us. And we really need to move. This is incredibly urgent. Those of you who have recently listened to the latest IPCC report, outcomes know, or just have been living on this planet, know that we are already experiencing some of the impacts of the human actions on the degradation of our ecosystems, and that there's much more that can be done that will make us healthier as human beings, physically, some would also say mentally, emotionally, but also creates jobs and creates healthier economies. So those are some of the benefits of sustainability efforts. I just skipped a slide. The silos that are hindering sustainability occur both within student affairs, where you have different offices, and so they don't necessarily come together with a coordinated sustainability effort, but also between student affairs and other divisions on campus. So HEASC has as one of its core strategic directions to use the campus and the community as the living lab for sustainability. And this is community in the widest sense of the term. It's not just the campus community. It's not just the locale where the campus is situated, although that is definitely included, but it's also the region, the state, and the national and the global community, using our assignments and our co-curricular activities as a living lab for sustainability. And we know that student affairs, more than any other group, really understands how to work with students in the co-curricular setting, and they can bringing those skills not only to the co-curricular setting for sustainability, but also to the curricular setting, helping faculty understand how to work more effectively with facilities directors and business officers and community partnership groups and all the other staff on campus and in the community, in the region, at the state level, so that students can work on real-world problem-solving projects and build the skills they need to be effective change agents for the future, and to take that self-concept with them. And as many of you know, student affairs, more than any other group, focuses on the developing self-concept of the student, not just on the knowledge that they're going to gain. So trying to move to the next slide. And it seems to be, there it is. All right, so now we move to the stories, which is wonderful. I look forward to hearing them along with all of you. Stories of sustainability initiatives. And we will start with our first speaker. So, Jesse, the only thing I'm wondering is I've got a whole bunch
of people.
And
Deb, this is Kay coming in.
Mm-hmm. And Kay, just one thing, we've got a whole bunch of people trying to get into this webinar who can't get in because we've reached our max. So hopefully there's some kind of a message going back out to them.
I was the one typing. I've been sending notes to folks. Jesse, if you have a way to increase the number of attendees, we would appreciate it. I texted you on the same, and thank you everyone for your patience. This is Kay Holman, and I have the great pleasure this afternoon of introducing one of my colleagues, Tim Broderick at Colorado State University, to start us off on the stories of sustainability initiatives. Tim works in our housing and dining services area at Colorado State, and he is also one of the national leaders in sustainability and student affairs, currently serving as the chair of NASPA's knowledge community in that area. Tim, I'm going to turn it to you.
Okay. So just another brief introduction of myself. My name is Tim Broderick. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for Housing and Dining Services at Colorado State University. My lens of sustainability within student affairs really is housing and dining services. So I'm here today to kind of share with you some of our experiences with living learning laboratories. We talk about breaking down silos and working across different areas, and really living learning laboratories is the avenue to do that. So the definition of living learning laboratory is a concept encompassing a range of practical on-campus applications of research and experiments that provide students hands-on experience, benefits operations, and enhances sustainability. So what does that mean in the real world? How does that definition get applied? And this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. So I brought two examples of living learning laboratories at CSU's Housing and Dining Services that are in varying stages of development, and I'm going to talk about them today. So the first living learning laboratory that I have is our composting program and our anaerobic digestion program. It's really sort of food waste management as a whole. The composting program started in April of 2011. It is our oldest child of the living learning laboratory experiences. At this point, it's operating very smoothly, and you'll see with some of the other ones, we're still in varying stages of development. So I kind of wanted to start out with the one that we have the most experience with. Our composting program is a partnership between Housing and Dining Services, the Crop Soil Science Department on campus, and facilities. They make up what we call our composting team. Creating teams whenever developing a living learning laboratory is critical to success. It will not move anywhere if you just have emails being shot around constantly. You have to have that relationship and development of a team in order for these to get off the ground. Funding for this program came from HDS. So you have all the cards, or I have all the cards, when we're talking Housing and Dining Services composting program. That allows people to be a bit more receptive when you're sending emails out and you're trying to coordinate meetings and getting people together. When the funding is coming from your source, if you're the one really trying to promote and get the program operating. Breakdown of responsibilities within our living learning laboratory for composting. Housing and Dining Services, as I mentioned, is the main funder. All the food waste is coming from the dining centers out to the Foothills campus where they're processed. We have the Ag Soil Science Department. We have an amazing professor over there named Addie Elliott. She serves as the advisor to our composting interns. We have a student position that's connected with the program as well. She also sort of sits on our committee team as the science guru. She's telling us about formulas for our bulking material, the food waste ratios that are going into our composting program. She does our soil samples so that we can prove when we want to use it on campus to our landscaping management here that we have good compost. She's critical. Facilities is the day-to-day operations. They're the people picking up the materials, taking it out to the composter, turning the piles. They directly oversee the student intern on a regular basis as well. So all of these members outside of Housing and Dining Services are critical for the project to be successful. The cherry sort of on top of it all is that our interns, and we talk about the Living Learning Laboratory, we need that student experience. Our intern comes directly from Addie Elliott's composting class that she teaches. She picks an intern at the end of that course, usually one of her better students who has performed at the top of the class, and that internship has gone on to great success for students in their careers. We've had one student move on to a truffle farm in southern France. We've had another student work at a vineyard in Northern California who actually started their own composting program for that company based off their experience with our composting operation out at the Foothills campus. So anaerobic digestion, the other side of sort of our food waste management equation here with our Living Learning Laboratory, that started in February of 2013. We send all of our pulped food waste from our dining centers to the city of Fort Collins, and this is a unique partnership outside of the university. The city of Fort Collins then processes those materials into methane. The methane is then used as energy to help the plant operate on a regular basis. For this calendar year, the city is going to be working towards developing a position, a student position, with the engineering department on campus that helps manage the city's responsibilities when these materials show up on site. The goal is that that position will ultimately be paid for and funded by the city. The city is actually in the process of writing a grant right now. The city has a sustainability fund to the sustainability fund, and we are a big component of that is our relationship with CSU in order for that grant to be successful. The next Living Learning Laboratory experience that I want to share is our gray water system that we have on campus. Before I kind of get into the nitty-gritty details, just for those who are not familiar with gray water systems, ours is located in a residence hall on campus, Aspen Hall. The gray water system collects used water from the showers and the laundry room. It's collected into a storage tank, then processed through a filter, and then there's a disinfectant dosing. We use chlorine here at the university. Then it goes into a disinfection tank and ultimately ends up getting reused to flush the toilets on the first floor of the building. So our gray water project really came out of the engineering department. So this is a little bit different model of a living learning laboratory, whereas it's not coming from Housing and Dining Services, but a research department. So it was built into the building in 2009 when it was newly constructed. And there were 4 years worth of research that went on when the system was installed. Yet it was never turned on and operated on the first floor. So this is not a bad thing. You know, we're an academic research institution, and this benefits the engineering department, but not necessarily Housing and Dining Services. So the gray water team, again, we took the same model that we utilized with composting that was successful to break down these silos and bring these different organizations together. And we formed a gray water team in September of 2013. There are a lot of regulations when it comes to gray water in the state of Colorado that we had to work through, and this team was necessary in order for that to happen. The team was made up of facilities management, specifically a water engineer over in that department. The engineering department, Sybil Charvel is the professor who we work with on a regular basis. Ourselves in Housing and Dining Services as well. And again, those people were very necessary to get through all the waivers, work with ResLife for anything that was going to affect the students within the residence halls. And finally, in the spring of 2014, the system went live. In a living learning laboratory experience, even when you get your system active, there's still going to be growing pains that are going to arise. And that sort of leans back on how strong is your team and how quickly can you get communication around. For instance, in our gray water system, our filter clogs constantly. The students are in there once every 2 weeks clearing out that filter. It can have quite a potent smell associated with it. So we're still trying to work out a system in order to clean that filter out and not affect the residents living within our building. So since this research is grant-based for our gray water system, that money is running out. Again, this is sort of a different angle when you come into creating these living learning laboratories. If it's going to come from the academic side, there's going to be some issues that need to be dealt with. So we're in the currently in the process of transferring the gray water system and the grad student position to Housing and Dining Services. That's going to have ongoing funding that we can budget for every single year, as we have done with the composting operations. We're writing the job descriptions now, developing the standard operating procedure, and a number of other processes that are necessary in order for this system and the daily operations to be transferred to Housing and Dining Services. We absolutely still want to keep the gray water team. Again, that's critical. We want the student position to report to Sybil Charvel in the engineering department. It just makes it that much more of a success, and really we're supporting that living learning laboratory process that we want to see continue to grow here at CSU. So in the end, regardless of if you're a staff or a faculty member, we all come to the table with needs and wants. As I mentioned in the gray water project, research was really the need and want of the faculty member. And one of those things we have to do is break down those silos and make sure those needs and wants are being communicated, discussed, and written down. As long as that is occurring, operations will be that much smoother when trying to work with organizations outside of your area. Student involvement. Quickly want to briefly talk today about student involvement at CSU, critical within student affairs. Really, student affairs is the leader here on campus of trying to get students to take on actions as more sustainable behavior choices. We're going to talk about Housing and Dining Services, and that's a piece that I'll discuss briefly. And then Kay Holman's going to come in and talk about student engagement organizations outside of HDS, as well as the co-curricular programs that exist on campus here at Colorado State University. So Housing and Dining Services. Within Housing and Dining Services, we have our own peer-to-peer education program called the Eco Leaders. We are in our 3rd year of operation at this point. They are our main access to educate and engage the students living within the residence halls to take on actions of more sustainable behavior choice. And they do it throughout the year. There's a number of programs, and I'll talk about one of them in the next slide, that they're responsible for to trying to get out there to educate students on a variety of sustainability issues. The Live Green team is really staff and any student volunteers who want to come on board within Housing and Dining Services. And they help organize and aid in events, again, all throughout the year. Cardboard corrals that happen in the beginning of the year, our operations management have typically set up with the Eco Leaders. So as students move into the residence hall, they bring tons and tons of cardboard. The eco-leaders set up in those locations to collect that cardboard, and it's also a way for them to introduce themselves in a leadership role in sustainability to their building. And they're also collaborating with the operations management volunteers who come out that day. Leave it behind at the end of the year. Students, when they exit the residence halls, again, leave behind tons and tons of stuff. So we collect those things through our surplus center. We sell them at a community sale. Those proceeds then go to fund the Eco-Leaders program. Kind of in between is all the fun stuff. There's a ton of sorting that occurs, and our volunteers come directly from the Live Green team to help sort through all those materials so the sale can be efficient. Recycle Mania throughout the year. Recycling is important, but for 8 weeks of the year, we focus in on a competition, residence hall to residence hall, as well as apartment to apartment complex. The staff are critical. They get the word out there to the students as the new numbers that are being updated within the apartments. And the eco-leaders, obviously during that time period, are also responsible for trying to engage the students in the residence halls for participation. We have different engagement tools that we've developed for that specific campaign. So student engagement organizations, I'm going to talk about Green Warrior, and then I'm going to turn over to Kay Holman. Green Warrior is our main student engagement program. The website is actually not live right now. If you click on it, it will say, please check back in the fall. And when the fall does roll around, we begin. It's really the first 8 weeks of the academic year. It's designed and built to get students to change their behavior to more sustainable choices. We talk about those different umbrellas of sustainability: alternative transportation, water management, energy conservation, food choices. They're all a part of Green Warrior. And the behavior and choices within there are very specific to students living within the residence hall. It's not general sustainability choices, because we really want to see that impact right here on campus when they're living and they're a part of the community. Based off how many choices they make, they then get prizes in exchange for that. All of our prizes are sustainable choices. We have shower timers, green CFL light bulbs. Our t-shirts are made of 50% recycled plastic cotton and 50% organic cotton. We want to make sure that the prizes that we're giving aren't continuing to the problem that we're trying to solve. So that is our main focus and engagement campaign for the start of the semester and every single academic year. So I will turn over the slides now to Kay Holman.
And I'll unmute myself because I'm busy typing and tweeting with folks who are here online. I'm mindful of our time, and we promised we'd keep each of our story sets to somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 minutes. So I just briefly want to speak to the student organizations and engagement on campus as this living learning laboratory model that Tim has been sharing with you really has expanded. It's so much more than just housing and dining services, although as you all can hear, phenomenal things are going on in our housing and dining services community, and they really have been leaders in that three-legged stool of engagement that includes the economy, the environment, and also the getting the students involved in understanding the social components. Our School of Global Environmental Sustainability offers a Student Sustainability Center, and they also offer a minor academic program. So no matter what your major is on campus, you can actually minor in sustainability. And the outreach to students and student organizations goes all the way through graduate programs into doctoral programs. You can apply annually to be a SOJA Sustainability Leadership Fellow if you are a doctoral candidate on the campus. And it's a wonderful opportunity to get our doc students involved. And finally, rideshare allows an opportunity for folks to be able to share in rides together wherever they need to go. Finally, I'll mention very briefly and not even tell you what these specific initiatives are because I want to turn this over to Janice DeMonsi at Santa Clara. Our co-curricular program initiatives are also extensive, and it has to do with those relationships, the teams, the partnerships, the active searches for funding that Tim was mentioning in all the work that's also gone on in housing and dining services. The Green Initiatives is a general campus page for all of the amazing things going on our campus. I mentioned already SOJUS, our School of Global Environmental Sustainabilities, and then finally our Living Learning community within Natural Resources, and finally Earth Week. We invite all of you to go out and take a look at these websites, and please feel free to contact me or Tim if you have additional questions. Janice, at this point, I would like to turn it over to you so you can talk about the great things going on at Santa Clara. We are sitting at 11:30 here in Colorado, so it's 1:30 for folks on the East Coast. And we'll give you a good 5 to 10 minutes, Janice, to tell us about California.
Okay, great. Thank you. So here at Santa Clara University, as the Director of Recreation, we've been doing a lot of different things to engage the community in sustainability, mostly looking at our trash and our recycling and our composting. So over this past summer, I was brainstorming and was thinking, you know what, our club sports, we do so much travel, and obviously there's a big impact on that. So I had this idea, and so I had this idea, so we met with the Center for Sustainability, who we work closely with on campus, about how we could take the carbon footprint of our club sport game travel for the year and change it or deplete it using some pledges online. And those pledges that would be people changing behavior. Because one of the things I didn't want to do is purchase carbon offsets for the 263 tons of emissions that were emitted during the game travel. So obviously we looked at the behaviors and changing student, faculty, staff, or even our other alumni members that use our facility and see this information. We welcome them to also take pledges each quarter. But by changing the behavior, ideally, if someone's using a reusable grocery bag every time they go to the store, then that impact is larger because that behavior has changed. So each behavior was given a small, medium, or large impact. And then every 2 weeks, we calculate where we're at in the depletion of the 263 tons. And then all of our raffle prizes, as you can see in the image, are reusable water bottles, lunch skins for your sandwiches or potato chips or fruit, lunch bots, water containers, coffee cups. Obviously, this webinar is about the silos and working together. So Campus Rec is the primary location for this Hoofprint Challenge, as we call it, because we're the Broncos. But we worked heavily with the Center for Sustainability, who assisted us with creating the surveys and determining the pledge pounds, as well as promoting the challenge. We also have the unique opportunity to work with campus ministry. They did a month in October that was called Mission Sustainable, and each day there was a different focus. And so October 7th was our day, and we promoted the Hoofprint and a student project that occurred a couple years ago called the Carbon Footprint Calculator for Students. Obviously, when you're calculating your carbon footprint and you're living in a dorm, it's very different than my house and my commute to and from campus. So this Hoofprint calculator was created by students, considering that students live in the dorms. So, and all of that information can be found in our miscellaneous survey. And at the end of the slide, there is a website to our sustainability page on the Campus Rec site. And if you click on there, the Hoofprint Challenge is there, as well as all the surveys. And then in miscellaneous is this carbon footprint link. So we teamed up with Campus Ministry, and they gave us a day, which was great. And then this past February, we also teamed up with Residence Life. They have the month of February is their energy challenge. And so we tweaked the survey so the PDF doesn't match what's currently online, in that we asked a question for, if you answered student in the survey, then it would ask you what RLC you were part of. Then each RLC resident that participated in the Hoofprint challenge and either did one of the surveys or all four received enthusiasm points for the energy challenge. So it was a great way to involve more than just Campus Rec and the Center for Sustainability on campus. For marketing the challenge, we have this huge mural as you leave our weight room. And then we have a huge mural as you leave the weight room, and patrons can see that And at the very end of this slide, you'll see a new image of the challenge. But as you can tell, this one's really gray and smoky and kind of shows the emissions. And as we've been depleting, we have an updated image that shows a blue sky in the background. And ideally, by the end of this quarter, we'll get to a very clean, crisp slide. We also market through our Campus Rec newsletter, our website. On Facebook, we have the Hoofprint Challenge Facebook page, as well as the Sustainability at SCU, which is run by the Center for Sustainability. And then we are trying to use Instagram, so you can give us a photo of what you're doing as part of the Hoofprint, and then each quarter we pick a winner from there and give them a raffle prize. Here are just some of the samples of what some of the pledges that people can take in the conserving water. Obviously, the average shower time is about 7 to 8 minutes. So if someone can take a 5-minute shower, then obviously they're using less water. Saving energy, if you combine your errands into, one car trip instead of going to Target today and then the grocery store tomorrow, if there's a way to make it in one trip, then you're saving energy. For waste reduction, all of our students on campus are having events, so if they can encourage recycling at the events. Miscellaneous actions, obviously volunteering at our campus garden called The Forge. And then as of March 2014, we have been able to engage 199 faculty staff, 367 students, and one other, which again could be our alumni members. And then we have depleted 129 tons, and so we're 50% there. And so here's our new image showing some blue sky, hopefully encouraging people to assist us with the rest of the 50%, and hopefully again we'll make it there by June. We have tried to give participants feedback as they're going through the survey. The ones that have given us their names, we continue to email them every 2 weeks and just say, this is where we're at, encourage others to take the survey. Again, we've updated the image, and then at the bottom are our 2 websites for this project. Now I'm going to turn it over to Maureen McGonigal from DePaul to talk about her programs.
Thanks, Janice. Let's see. Okay, the example from DePaul is the D-Men Challenge, which stands for DePaul Males Encouraging Nonviolence. This particular program was first offered in 2010 after securing a 2-year grant from DePaul's Vincentian Endowment Fund. The D-Men Challenge focuses specifically on the social and socioeconomic aspects of sustainability. In particular, the program directly addresses the issues of inclusion, equity, diversity, opportunity, and service. And as you'll see in the next few slides, these values are really important in the mission of all 4 of the contributing partners. The D-Men Challenge is really a unique partnership, partly because it involves 3 different DePaul departments that are from 3 different divisions of the university, and as well it involves the Chicago Public Schools. So starting from the bottom, CPS's Male Initiative Project, which is the first partner, it's a school-based mentoring program that's designed to empower African American and Hispanic Latino males in order to pursue education as a catalyst to success. The goals of the program are improving academic performance, improving high school graduation rates, and addressing students' physical and emotional needs. They do this through peer mentoring, leadership development training, and also team building. And then there's DePaul, which is a Catholic and Vincentian institution, and we have a very, very strong commitment to teaching, community service, and social justice. You can see this in our student population. About 30% of our students are Pell eligible. About 30% of our students, our freshmen rather, are first generational college students, and about 1/4 of our students are freshmen of color. It's really important at DePaul to balance the student quality with access. Of the 3 partners at DePaul, the first is Enrollment Management and Marketing. Their Center for Access and Attainment helps orchestrate the university's commitment to educational opportunity for a diverse student population. And particularly, They're looking at low-income, first-generational college students and also students from the immediate Chicago area. Our Center for Access and Attainment they do some phenomenal work, and in particular with this initiative, their Chicago Public Schools contacts. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to do this program successfully. The second DePaul partner is Student Affairs Office of Multicultural Student Success, which is, again, crucial in DePaul's efforts to admit, retain, and successfully graduate students who, again, and you keep hearing this over and over, is low income and or first generational and or students of color. And then the third partner from DePaul is where I'm at in facility operations, campus recreation, in the Teen Challenge program. And the mission of that particular program, it's devoted to building trust, improving communication, and establishing higher levels of understanding and appreciation within groups. So it's easy to hear between those 4 different units what the clear intersection of goals are. But before I cover the specific program goals, I wanted you to see a sample itinerary. But it's very slow in responding. Sorry about that. So that's an itinerary for the day. So you can see they come for almost a full day. Now, the very first purpose is building a team and breaking down barriers. So we start the day with a team challenge, which is led by 3 to 4 DePaul student facilitators who work for campus recreation. Because there are typically 2 different schools involved at each event, the team challenge is really, really important in quickly merging those 2 groups into one team. The second purpose is to help increase the boys' knowledge level about and their comfort level with the idea of going to college. This is accomplished through a DePaul overview and a tour of campus, which is led by 3 to 4 DePaul student tour guides who work for enrollment management and admissions. We follow this with lunch, which is intentionally structured to promote the informal interaction between the boys, not only from the 2 different schools, but also with the DePaul students who are involved, and also with the staff from the Chicago Public Schools and the staff from DePaul. The third purpose is engaging the boys in conversations around the intersections of race, gender, masculinity, and violence, obviously as they experience in their daily lives. We accomplish this through a courageous conversations piece, which is led, again, by 3 to 4 peer mentors, and these are students that work for the Office of Multicultural Student Success. So every part of the day builds up to this last moment where the boys are encouraged to really, in their sharing, be vulnerable, brave, and reflective. And it's really neat after the program to hear some of the input from the boys about how meaningful the day has been for them. So here's some program details. In the first 2 years, we had 225 participants from 12 different schools. The grant provided the funding for the transportation, some of the student labor, and a t-shirt, while the other 3 departments provided the lunch, the facility rentals, and the additional student labor. The grant was only for 2 years, so it's since expired, but because it was so successful, we're still offering it, just scaled back. So instead of 4 to 5 a year, we offer 2 to 3 a year. And the schools now have to provide their own participation, but pretty much everything else the DePaul departments are donating. We've been really happy with the outcomes of the program. In particular, the participants have self-reported in the 70 to 90% range of the highly agree that they learn new leadership skills, improve their communication skills, their problem-solving skills, and also their conflict resolution skills. And lastly, they reported feeling much more confident because of the program about applying to college. And lastly, I just want to share a little bit about a sister program. Because of the success of the D-Men Challenge, we created a sister program called GLAD, which stands for Girls Learning at DePaul, as you can see. We again received a Vincentian Endowment Fund grant for GLAD in 2012, and the program was very similarly structured to the Boys D-Men Challenge. It's also been well received, so the intention is to continue the program after the grant runs out after this year. And just wrapping up, it's been both programs have been very positive, great listening to the wonderful stories and outcomes, and I think it's a good example of how different divisions on campus can work together, not only in different departments, but also working outside, in our case, with Chicago Public Schools. So next up is Jim Tweedy, who's going to share with you an example from the University of Delaware. Jim?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. one of the things that I wanted to be able to talk about from a University of Delaware perspective is this idea of a decentralized approach for what I've called, at least on my slide here, sustainability for all. Many schools, and I think many listeners out here, will be familiar with a challenge of being an organization or an institution that has chosen not to, invest in a central office for sustainability, either for sustainability education or for sustainability in facilities or things like that. The perspective here is that sustainability should be everyone's responsibility rather than a centralized, and I think there ends up being pros and cons to that, but I wanted to be able to talk through some steps that we've been able to take in order to still promote sustainability, to still involve a number of community members around the topic of sustainability without having necessarily a paid centralized charge unit in order to do that. And I wanted to be able to start just a little bit in terms of some of our history. And when I look back to some of our efforts of today, I really trace back to around 2006 in terms of one of our major starting points. And I also want to point out, really at that point, our administration at that time really considered that some of these sustainability things that were coming out around that point were somewhat of a fad and somewhat of a something that would mostly just kind of go away, and there wasn't necessarily a great deal of investment. However, we were still able to, we certainly had the capacity and the ability to put out a general call for anyone interested in the topic of sustainability and to form that initial task force. And we felt like that was a pretty important move, and we had broadcast out to several academic units, several student affairs units, facilities units, any aspect of the institution, as well as a number of our different student organizations, to form our first task force and to begin just building a community of like-minded folks who were interested in this topic, and to be able to brainstorm and put together some different plans. At what point our administration changed over around 2007, we had already laid a lot of groundwork and had already had a great deal of momentum moving in. And as you'll see with the other parts of our timeline, there are some very important actions taken by our administration, that helped, I think, gather a great deal of attention and helped really focus some of the institutional efforts. As you see, our president did sign the climate commitment as well as the Taylor's Declaration, which had put us on to setting some goals, setting some standards, as well as committing our institution to a number of different components. We also started to become much more involved with things like Campus Sustainability Day, the Earth Weeks, and we took advantage of those sort of opportunities to not necessarily do a educational promotion about sustainability, but to try to bring together all the different communities of people within the institution who are interested in sustainability and give them opportunities to encounter each other and to build some partnerships and to continue to build momentum every year. One of the things that we found ended up being important for us, that we'd had a lot of attention towards sustainability starting in 2006, is that when the institution moved on to a new strategic plan, it was something that was an active part of the conversation and ended up being one of the significant portions of our 5-year strategic plan, which also then put a number of different resources there. I wanted to point out one key moment for us. We actually had it in 2007 and in 2008. We had 2 years in a row in which our senior class chose as their fundraising gift to focus on sustainability. In 2007, the senior class put forward a gift to help enhance recycling on campus, but in 2008, the senior class donated funds in order to help one of our academic units do a extensive carbon footprint analysis of the University of Delaware campus, which also then led, at what point we were able to do the analyses, to a major climate action plan, and I want to be able to talk about a couple of those components as we go through. As you'll see here on this slide in terms of this path to prominence, and anyone is welcome to certainly look through any of these components. They're all public websites for us at the university. This is our strategic area of what we call the Initiative for the Planet, in terms of a number of different initiatives that we do broadly as an institution toward the aspect of sustainability, and it became a pretty important component for us to end up being referenced as a central part in terms of the university strategic plan. I wanted to point out on the slide showing our emissions, it's not that I want to walk you through the annual emissions of the University of Delaware Newark campus. However, we have a very expansive report, again paid for by our senior class gift, that shows us in detail where we are putting out the most waste, where we are putting out the most emissions, and it allows us to set some targets, and it allows us to be also a very public document so that the entire institution can become involved with this. And I recognize that not every institution may end up having the resources to put together a analysis, but to try to at least count everything that is possible or within your scope and capacity to count, because it's become very important for us to be able to have some visuals and to be able to have a sense about which areas we should target first, which areas we should target on a 5-year plan, which areas we should target on a 10-year plan. But this report has become an incredibly effective tool for us, and also again led to the formation of our full University Climate Action Plan. Moving on, I wanted to talk for a moment in terms of some of the action areas of the Climate Action Plan, which has also been a driving force for us as an institution, even without a centralized office. You'll see that we have a green infrastructure component, and that's where you're going to see a lot of the operations, buildings, systems, things like that, and those are some very long-range plans as well as some different standards for our new buildings. Transportation ended up being a significant area for us in terms of its climate impact, so we have been doing a number of both short-term and long-range plans to change some of the ways in which students drive here on campus, to change some of our internal transportation systems, and to put together some new campus infrastructure plans in that area. Green power is obviously something that we've invested in, and a number of institutions do so as well. The component I want to hit on through the latter part of this presentation is our green community action. When I think of student affairs, and I think of the out-of-classroom environment, beyond just the division of student affairs, this community action component from our climate action perspective is seen as one of the 4 cornerstones that's going to enable us to succeed in terms of our long-range goals as an institution. And some of the things under the green community action are meant to inspire and communicate and engage with the full community. The perspective of the Climate Action Plan is that reducing may not be enough, and if you do not enable, I guess, all the citizens of your community to be a part of this, then things will not necessarily continue on. They will change very, very quickly or go back to the original norm. So we've been tasked and charged with a number of initiatives there, and those are some of the areas that I want to talk about from a student affairs contribution point. You'll see here the Sustainability Task Force mission statement, and I think it's worth a very, very quick read in terms of some of the areas that we focus on for this area. And the Sustainability Task Force, even though we initially created it in 2006, is still a very strong organization on our campus, and in part because we eventually set up a more of a formalized system in which we have faculty representation, we have facilities representation, we have student representation, as well as staff representation in 2-year cycles of positions, as well as a number of other chairpersons throughout different initiatives that this task force has put on. So it's become a very, I think, significant force within our campus, but it's all volunteer, and that has been something that has been working incredibly well for us in terms of being able to make that a centralized force for our school. The Sustainability Task Force, of course, like most organizations would, does have a website. So if you have a deeper interest in terms of the infrastructure, organization, initiatives of this volunteer group, I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at our website. We have a number of different resources on there, as well as reports on some of our other initiatives. So that is available for any folks who would like to take a look. Some pieces that I wanted to talk about in terms of some of our community action. We've been able to, through the task force, develop a Green Liaisons program, and this program is designed to ask as many of the administrative units, academic units, however many different of our full-time staff would be willing to establish 1 liaison per unit with our ideal, and these folks would end up getting some additional sustainability, environmental practices training, and have monthly seminars in terms of kind of advancing the awareness, advancing the community knowledge, and advancing some of the action, and that's been a very important program for us to put together. We've also been able to move fully into single stream recycling through some networks through the community as well as through the state, and that's been a very effective impact for our campus. We'll have things on annual in terms of being able to, through the Sustainability Task Force, develop annual chairs, and again for usually 2-year periods, who help us coordinate Sustainability Day, who help us coordinate Earth Week, and so we have different players and different stakeholders for each of these. An area that I wanted to point out that's been of great success for us is the UD Sustainability Fund. The task force was able to work with the Office of Development and put forward a call to alums, parents, families, other community stakeholders for an interest in donating to sustainability initiatives at UD, specifically sustainability initiatives aimed at educating students, aimed at creating different activities for awareness, and we had a terrific response in terms of donor interest, and that has been able to fund a great many initiatives, and so students, faculty, staff are able to, on a continuous basis, request funds out of the Sustainability Fund for initiatives that they want to take on out of their department or out of their unit. We also end up having positions focused exclusively on marketing and communications out of the Sustainability Task Force, and that's been effective for us as well. And we also attempt to put forward policy recommendations for the institutions from an advisory standpoint. You'll see here different things that will come out of our task force in terms of our Earth Week poster and promotion, and my assumption is that many of the campuses will have this, so I didn't want to spend much time on this, but I think we have a good number of events for 2013, and if you get on our website, our 2014 events are incredibly strong as well. Pictures here in terms of things like our community garden, which has been, we have 2 or 3 of those now. We have one that's a combination from the English Language Institute, as well as another one over on our college farm that is meant specifically for donations to local food agencies, and those have been major community successes for us. The last thing I did want to point out, as you'll see in the background of one of our residence halls and a big sign out here in the meadow, is we've tried to use the Sustainability Fund to put as many indicators around campus to show where we're working on sustainability, so that we haven't invested a great deal of time, energy, resources, and students walk around and don't necessarily have awareness of it. So we try to be very mindful of putting up as many indicators so that we can continually educate the people as part of their lived environment, the types of things that we are working on for sustainability and for a sustainable campus as part of our own initiative, as well as you'll see things very often around campus these days, and the students are pushing for more and more of these in terms of simple items like, say, a water bottle refill station. And what you find is that as you're doing new construction, they cost almost the exact same as a normal water fountain. So small changes on that part are also starting to put more things in the environment, which are then putting more items out there for students to inquire about, and for students to start to put even some upward pressure on the administration and on folks like myself to take on more sustainability actions. And overall, from a community perspective, even without a centralized office, I believe the most important thing is just starting to gather like-minded people, and then from there, a number of things can just evolve on their own.
Thank you, Jim. This is Kay coming back in, and I apologize for everybody who was watching those slides. Jim is having to join us on the phone today, and there, I think, was some confusion as we were trying to make sure the slides matched what he was speaking to. So you saw them all, and again, this is being recorded. I want to thank everyone who's also been on Twitter with Pound HEASC Stories. We're having a great conversation there as well. I'm now going to take over advancing the slides and move to the peer-to-peer interaction time. We have about a half an hour left, and I know that there's about 80 people online with us. It's wonderful, who may or may not have questions and may just still want to soak up the discussion. I have some questions that I've been noting as you've been speaking, but Scott Sawyer, who is online with all of us, has also asked a question, and I promised we would lead with his question. So Deb, as well as our 4 presenters, can you offer any tips or ideas on how to get the administration to buy in, commit, and fund sustainable efforts?
I'll go ahead and go with a quick component here from our University of Delaware, and this is Jim Tweedy again. We have found that being able to try to put sustainability in the context of institutional gain. So when you look at the mission of your institution, when you look at any of the strategic plans or any of the different objectives of the administration, we find that there's a number of intersections given the broad array of ways in which you can try to work on sustainability. But ultimately, our success wasn't necessarily waiting on the administration. It was trying to form a community around this idea of interested faculty, staff, and students, and at what point we were able to show that there's a great deal of interest and we were able to show that there's a lot of potential for our students in this area. The administration was much happier to come along with different ideas and to really take part and to eventually take over the leadership.
I'll piggyback on that. Santa Clara University, sustainability is now part of our mission statement. The university just rolled out a new mission statement for 2020, and the whole campus is going to be a zero waste facility.
Wow.
So I think because of that, and it does make it easy, or not necessarily easy, but fun to participate, especially from Campus Rec, because there's one other area where we kind of tie into the strategic plan, but of the 6 pillars, there's only 2 small sentences, but sustainability being one of them, I've just made it a focus, and I mean, we have to make it a focus of what we're doing because of, you know, just the good, both social justice wise and environmentally wise. It has to be part of it. So we spend the money to support it because it's important.
This is Tim here, Colorado.
This is actually, Tim, go ahead.
I was just
go ahead.
Kind of give my perspective on it as well. I've had the pleasure of working at 2 different universities with sustainability initiatives, and I think you have to understand the DNA sort of your institution. I would go back to those 3 pillars that you have: social justice, economics, and environmentalism. And I believe that every institution can relate to those in different ways. In student affairs, the social justice angle of it is huge. You know, if you can give student experience and student engagement, a lot of times your voice is going to be heard. There's other institutions that are very focused on the economics component of it. If you can bring forward a project that has a high return on investment, it makes sense, and it's not only sustainable but financially sustainable, there's institutions that are going to react to that. And then environmentalism. There's certain institutions out there that are, you know, very pro-environmentalism. They don't care as much about bottom line. And I think you just have to have an understanding of maybe what your administrators want, and maybe it goes back to the strategic goals of your institution, and then trying to follow that avenue of the 3 pillars and which one is going to be most receptive by your administrators, and then starting to pick out some of the low-hanging fruits and maybe some projects that you can then sort of take advantage of which path you've chosen.
Tim, I love your comment about the DNA of an
at,
institution and the way you described it.
I would also, it's Debbie, I would recommend you take a look at the Sustainable Endowments Institute. They actually have materials on helping you. Whether you have an endowment or not, you can also do this with working capital. NACUBO had put out a publication on financing sustainability. AASHE's got resources on green fees. And in terms of getting buy-in, what I found is listen to what administration cares about and tie the sustainability agenda to that agenda. So you can talk about, for instance, in community colleges now, it's completion. Talk about completion and sustainability. You know, talk about the LEAP initiative if you have schools that are AAC&U organized and sustainability. Talk about the Democracy Project if it's through AASHE and sustainability. I had one chancellor who was a member of the World Future Society, so I didn't ask for a Sustainability Institute, I asked for a Futures Institute. And it was great because all our programming could be around sustainability. So I think it's partially too about listening first, finding out where their priorities are, and then showing this as a solution. And of course, being there when the strategic plan is written to make sure that sustainability is there in the mission and in the strategic goals, showing up at the meetings, talking to people in between meetings, building your coalition of support, identifying who the formal and informal power holders are and the influencers, and asking for their assistance. I've always enjoyed the phrase, you have such a great brain, I can't imagine doing this without your input. And then once people give input, they tend to be supporters.
Thanks, Deb. I'll add one comment actually there myself. I have had an opportunity like Tim to be at 2 different universities involved in sustainability, and at my former institution, we had support of the administration so long as we had support of the campus community. So the administration didn't want to go forward unless the campus community was really behind this idea. And so what the administration was willing to do, and I'll back up just a second. The administration didn't want it to be top down. They wanted it to be bottom up. And they were willing to fund a 3-hour luncheon where we could all come together as a campus and talk about sustainability, have an open forum and a dialogue for sharing, and it would help the administration know the directions, that DNA that Tim referred to, that the campus itself wanted to move in. So it was wonderful. We had this great forum. We invited the campus community. We had lots and lots of attendees from all different corners of campus, areas that we had no idea even were aware of the pulse of sustainability in higher ed, and had a wonderful discussion, open forum. A handful of us were the leaders of it in terms of facilitating the dialogue and discussion, and we were able to provide a report to the administration. The administration could know what were the steps that the community wanted to take. It was a great way to get people involved and also find out who your relationships can be with, where the teams are, the partnerships, the communities of sustainability on our campuses and in our communities in the towns in which we live. Do we have another question from attendees? I can see Scott has sent a private note thanking us for making sure that we answered his question, but we would love to hear other questions from attendees. If you want to type in the chat box or alternatively use the questions box, I have both dialogues up and would be glad to share your question with everyone. While we wait to see if we've got some other questions from folks, I have a question for our speakers. Jim, you started out by talking about the University of Delaware having this sustainability fund and that it provides seed money for sustainability initiatives. My overall question has to do with what kinds of funds are available, what kinds of resources have you found to advance sustainability in your campuses? If you can speak to those opportunities for revenue resources, essentially, to get these things going and keep them going, we would sure appreciate your insights.
Sure. One of the ways that we've been able to, as I think I'd mentioned a bit ago, we'd work with our development office just to generate donations. So normally the development office, and I think this is probably true to any campus, is generally interested in putting out kind of calls for funding, calls for donations from a variety of like special interest areas or things that folks are a little bit more passionate about. And we found that the development office had a great deal of interest in this, and then as they simply added this as a category and put together a little bit of marketing in terms of some of the aspirations we have as an institution, some of the goals we would have for sustainability, we found a great many donors, both within the campus from faculty and staff as well as from outside of the campus. We've seen some institutions, and University of Delaware has not done this, but we've seen some institutions work with their student governments in order to put a certain an additional fee on students, in terms of maybe $1 a credit type of thing, for students to donate or to put money into a longer range sustainability fund. That's not an area we've necessarily approached, but we've seen a lot of schools do that pretty successfully. And the other, I think, components in terms of financing come out of the facilities branch, where they end up building a revolving fund, and we have been able to develop a revolving fund in which different units are able to take an interest-free loan out of the revolving fund in order to do a facility improvement that has a certain payback, and then as the expenses reduce from an energy perspective, then you're able to pay back that revolving fund loan.
Wow, what great innovative ideas there. Deb, maybe with you and your work across the nation and even internationally, have you seen some models that we should share?
Well, I think that we should think about not just the campus. So I think that there states, Connecticut and now New York and others, have a state bank, a green bank, where people can have funds to invest in energy efficiency and renewables. I like that one. Here's one that's not about getting money, but it is about utilizing money effectively. And one of the California community colleges, when they went to put solar electricity on their facility, opened up the purchasing to the community so that anybody who wanted to put solar electricity on their home could be part of a pool for the purchase, so that the larger volume would bring down the price. I thought that was great. So that's another great model, is think about ways to raise funds that not only help the campus be more sustainable, but the region as a whole. You might connect with the mayor's office or the Chamber of Commerce or the United Way and other nonprofits about doing some kind of a crowdfunding campaign. And now there's ways to do that with equity funding, so that you're helping to grow the local green businesses at the same time that you're finding better ways of financing installations. You know, there's also the NAESCO group. This is the National Association of Energy Savings Companies, where they'll come in and put in all sorts of things for free, and then you just pay back out of the savings. Lots of models there. But I would look at also at the resources pages on the on HEASC, because there are additional resources there that help you think through how do you frame this so that you can have that cash flow on an ongoing basis. And I would bundle projects. Some projects may end up costing money, like some types of recycling, whereas other things are going to save you money. And if you have to justify them on a project by project basis, you'll end up changing your lights but not doing some other things that we need to do to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and our pollution on the planet, and reduce our environmental degradation. So what I would say is bundle projects together so that you're showing in an overarching way that you're reducing costs. The other piece, of course, is to point to how students are more interested in attending a university where there's a robust sustainability effort. Princeton Review has a survey that shows that. Also connected to employer needs, what they're looking for from graduates. Not everything has to pay for itself. Look at all the other things universities spend money on that don't pay for themselves. And these have outcomes that are of value for the institution. Of course, you can always tie it back into the mission of the institution, which is preparing citizens for a better world. We tend to say that in our missions in our institutions, but then we don't do robust implementation. I think you've heard a lot of great ideas here today in the answer to this question, but if you get stuck, I want to encourage you to contact any one of us, and if we can't help you, we can probably refer you to folks that where you can. There's also on the sustainability improve student learning, and I will put this in the chat box. There's more ideas there about how the students, through their curricular activities, can research answers to questions that you may have that you don't have the time necessarily on your own staff to do. So put the students on it and let them come up with solutions for you, and they are learning how to be change agents at the same time. On that site, that's the Sustainability Improved Student Learning site, there's also a listserv that you can join that'll connect you with not just student affairs, but people across higher ed institutions and silos, so that you can find out more about this. Also, if you aren't already a part of the Green Schools listserv, what a robust, really exciting listserv that is. There's also the AASHE forum. Once again, I'm not giving you specific answers to this question, but giving you the sources of how you can get answers to whatever questions you have.
And Deb, we'll go through the list of resources here in the last roughly 10 slides, and we turn it over to you, I think, after our last question. And we've got those addresses for, not Sizzle, but for the AASHE Bulletin and some of these others, including the Great Green Schools list. We have had a question, though, and thank you. Thank you for all of those insights from all of the great national and international resources. We've had a question from Samantha, and Samantha, I would undoubtedly mess up your last name, but I'm going to give it a stab, Pederosi, who has posted on our questions list. She said she enjoyed hearing about the Eco Leaders program and their assistance with move-in day recycling. She's wondering if we found it that event needed additional recycling dumpsters brought in to place around residence halls? And how did we also then recruit the students to be eco leaders? So Tim, I believe this is a question for you.
Okay, so I'll do my best, and Kay, you might have to remind me some of the questions. I think there are multiple rolled up in there at the same time. Yeah, so as a part of move-in, the cardboard corrals are located outside of each residence hall. We pick a specific area that has good visibility, easy access for it. And I think last year we collected over 18 tons worth of cardboard. So we know students are bringing it, we know there's a need for it, and that's really where it developed from, because our original cardboard collection stations were overflowing and not making a great visual impact for students who were coming to campus. And that's when we sort of set up these corral locations. Once the Eco Leaders program was developed, that's when we sort of put two and two together and we said, wow, this is a great opportunity for the Eco Leaders as the students are moving in to be set up at these corrals, to be introducing themselves as leadership role positions. The Eco Leaders actually come to campus 3 days early. We go up, we have a mountain campus called Pingree Park. We go up there, we do tons of team building exercises. There's an environmental literacy assessment that comes along with our program. Try and get the Eco Leaders as quickly up to speed as we possibly can about all of the different pieces of housing and dining services that we have. And so those positions are filled. We have a website designed where an application comes through. Students can start applying once preview begins on campus. So we have sessions throughout the summer, and we have a booth set up there where we give a card out to incoming students, incoming freshmen, that talks about what the Eco Leaders program is, and as well includes a link to that website where they can then apply. Website has basic questions about sustainability, says, you know, what is your experience with it? How much do you know about sustainability? And then based off of that, I go through the Excel spreadsheet, which is a ton of fun. It takes me several days to get through it all. We do phone interviews, and then we pick the positions from that group set that comes through. So did I cover everything, Kay, or were there other aspects of that question that I missed?
I think you covered it. Alexa at UNC Chapel Hill has actually posted in our questions list. She says that UNC Chapel Hill, we hire staff to assist with recycling during opening. Staff members greet students and families during their move-in and help divert recyclables to the appropriate places. It's been a very successful situation here too. So thanks, Alexa, for posting your story as well. I'm mindful of time, and we've got about 13 minutes left, and I know we've had folks that have had to go ahead and sign off too. Deb, I think at this point it might be wise that we turn it over to you to make sure that you can go through the balance of the slides and the other resources that we have available, and we'll see if we have any time left for perhaps some last comments or questions.
Okay, that sounds great. So you're welcome to continue to put your questions in as we go through these resources. So these are the websites of the organizations that participated today. HEASC, of course, the overarching network of all these higher ed associations, the ones that participated today, and many more. AASHE, which hosted it, and then the wonderful contributions you saw today, and they've been going on an ongoing basis, not just today, towards sustainability at NERSA, ACPA, and NASPA. So this takes you to their sustainability pages. And so I suggest that you take advantage of these links because there's a lot on each of those websites. Once again, Green Schools Listserv. It was started really before sustainability became a national trend, and now there are so many sustainability champions on it of all types that you can post questions about sustainability in the curricula and co-curricular, and I'm putting in a new type of boiler. Has anybody ever tried this? What about ice storage? Or, you know, questions like we were just talking about eco-reps. You might want to create a new Gmail that you sign up through. Although I find that it's on my main email and I enjoy it very much. I learn a lot from the great sustainability related people who are on that. We also have a LinkedIn group called Sustainability and Student Affairs, specifically for student affairs staff or those who want to understand more sustainability from the student affairs perspective. So I encourage you to join that, and thanks to Kay for making that happen. On October 22nd, we're going to have our next Campus Sustainability Day. HEASC has been one of the organizations supporting and helping to organize this. It's been many years now that we've had Campus Sustainability Day, a great way for campuses all over to remind not only people at the institution, but in the broader community that Earth Day isn't just one day a year, but it's every day, and that it's tied not just to the environmental side, but all three pillars of sustainability. So you can go there at campussustainabilityday.org and get more information on the upcoming October 22nd one. Organize it ahead of time so that you can make the best use of it as you implement it on your campus. AASHE's having their conference in Portland. So that should be really powerful, a great way to network, to learn about new front edge examples and precedents, and also connect with those who've been doing things for a long time and learn from what they've been able to accomplish, as well as share your stories. And it's also often just a celebration of what we're doing. Here's our contact information. And so we want you to feel free to connect with us, to ask us questions. We don't want you to sit and feel isolated in your efforts. You're all part of, we made up this informal network. It doesn't really exist, but except in name. We call it SISBRO, Sisters and Brothers in Sustainability. And many of us who've been involved in this for a long time, when you first start on your campus, you may feel like you're the only one until you learn how to reach out to others and to create a community. So we want you to know that you're already part of a community that exists, who are here to support you, and also here to learn about the great things you're doing and sharing it with others. And we want to thank you for all of your efforts, not only what you've already done, but what you plan to do in the future. And we look forward to working with you. Please do continue to think not only in terms of your own institution, but in terms of your region and the state, and also impacts nationally and internationally. I just got off of a Skype call just before we came onto this webinar from a woman who's running a South American network of high schools and universities, empowering the youth to turn to those who are in organizations, both private and nonprofit, and say, you're not moving fast enough. Have the youth be able to say, we're not moving fast enough towards a sustainable future. We're here to help you, but you've got to move faster. So we have a lot to learn from on what's going on the international level, but also to contribute and to strengthen our national work as well. And we hope that you will join us in that. HEASC does have fellows positions. They are not paid, but they also are not a large commitment, about 3 hours a week. You can look on the HEASC website for that. But there are many ways to contribute, not just being a fellow, and we look forward to working with you in that variety of ways in the future. So, Kay, are there other questions that you want to go through?
There haven't been other questions come across the list, but I'll tell you there's been a great conversation on Twitter that's also gone on, and so I'll just briefly highlight if anyone else wants to add anything as we wrap up. Thanks to Dan Barker, who was really excited about this and posted a great couple of tweets, and again, Samantha, who asked our question, was also really interested in these conversations, so thank you for tweeting. Pam Sue, who's with us as one of the co-chairs for NERSA, has made several comments along the way, and she was really interested with the minor program at Colorado State, and I made sure to put back on the Twitter site information on where that minor program is housed in our School of Global Environmental Sustainability, and she was giving shout outs to everybody as you were all presenting. So DNA of the institutions, and Jim, your great comments about the collaboration and the funding. She says, put sustainability in context of institutional gain, and quotes you, Jim. So thank you for everybody who was involved on Twitter during this as well. We will be making these slides available on the HEASC website, and the webinar was in fact recorded today. So if you find folks that were not able to join us, we'll be making it available. We thank you all for participating, and I would like to extend a huge thank you to Tim Broderick, Janice DeMonsi, to Maureen McGonigal, and also Jim Tweedy for being our speakers and preparing the slides for us. You guys were just fantastic today. And Deb, I'll leave it to you to wrap it up.
Well, okay, I was just going to type this into the chat box, but I'll just say it out loud. A huge thank you to you, Kay. This wouldn't have happened without you. We want all of the attendees to know that this is going to be part of a series. And so if you want to contribute your thoughts about what the rest of the series should be about, that's great. Let us know, because we are designing that. I also wanted to just make a quick announcement that we are working. HEASC is the part of the senior advisory board with a number of other networks from around the world: China, India, Europe, Africa, South America, etc., on an international sustainability literacy test. So if you want to go to sustainabilitytest.org and participate in our pilot that's going on this summer, you can sign up as an institution and be part of that. We've tried to get away from institutions, sticking eco footprints in a few classes and, putting in little teeny assignments and then saying, now we have sustainability across the curricula, or doing like one or two little student affairs events and say, now we have it in student affairs. It needs to be much more robust than that. So if you want to participate in that, we're going to be presenting that at the international conference for the end of the Decade of Education for Sustainability in Japan. You're welcome to participate. Once again, sustainabilitytest.org. You scroll down on the right-hand side and you can sign up as an institution. But that's just one of so many ways that we have for you to be part of the fantastic efforts that we see to make sustainability the norms in our society. And I look forward to a more sustainable future for us all. Thank you very much, everybody. And that concludes our webinar today.